Hey everyone, Somber here. I've just released another version of my Warhammer mod for Dominions 5. It's up to version 2.42, so I thought I'd just go through the changelog with you. So firstly, in general, there's a nice fix I put in. I had to use some things called is temple and has fort sites. They're basically flag sites that I was using, and I had to use those to signal that there was a fort in a province or that there was a temple in a province for various different events to fire properly. But they would turn up if people searched with high levels of holy magic, like holy 4 plus, or if they did a Akashic record, I believe the spell is. And people were going, "What the hell are these?" And they were thinking that the game was broken. So I've now made it so there's an event that rehides those, which I think is it doesn't really make any difference, but cosmetically should hopefully not bother the player as much. You shouldn't see them as often. It's the best fix I can manage, and you'll still find them if you search with H4 Plus. There's nothing I can do about that. That is literally the best thing that I can have them set up in terms of Dominions modding. So moving on to the nations, Chaos Dwarfs, a nice simple fix. Previously, slaves being sent to the capital was recorded in the event log, which meant that it would fill up the event log with lots of events, and you couldn't really check things properly. So that's been fixed for them, and that is also true of the Dark Elves. You can see here. So that's just the simple fix for those two nations. For the beastmen, some of the descriptions of temple sacking events indicated a fort was present when it wasn't the case, and I've now fixed that so they don't do that anymore. And I've changed the age some more on the Great Bay Shaven of Corn. It's actually really difficult to get him to not be old aged, so I've kind of been fiddling around with his age back and forth. I don't want them to be old, but I do want them to be able to get old. I don't want them to have like thousands and thousands of years of age extra they can have. I gave the Great Bay Shaman of Corn a significant research malus because it feels like he shouldn't really be able to do that much research. I gave Warhounds -1 siege strength because they were previously too useful specifically for sieging. People were recruiting Warhounds just for the purpose of sieging, and while it's quite funny to think of a bunch of dogs surrounding a castle and kind of digging trenches and things, it didn't really make that much sense. The Bestigor can now be recruited anywhere that there is a weapon pile. It was previously a bit strange that you could have a weapon pile and no access to the Bestigor, so you've got a bit more Bestigor access now where you've got your resources. If you destroy an enemy fort, you now always get a temple and a weapon pile in addition to any other rewards. And this was partly because the AI was not building temples reliably, and this should help them out a little bit when they destroy an enemy fort at least. The AI still has some issues with beastmen that I'm trying to work on, and I'll maybe do a video about that in the future. But I also think this will help players that they just always get a temple if they destroy an enemy fort, because it's quite a big achievement. Moving on to Bretonia, we've got some changes to the Duke recruitment option. It shouldn't really matter to the player, but they will make the AI more likely to recruit them. I've tested this, and it does seem to work out quite well, and they recruit the Dukes a bit more often now. Dark Elves already talked about that fix. And then we've got a fairly significant set of changes to the Dwarfs. I would say that this is the meat of this update. It's not a very big update, it's mainly bug fixes, but the Dwarfs got a fairly big change to them, so let's just go through that. So, firstly, overall, there are significant changes to the way that rune magic casters work in battle, and it's hopefully more intuitive and interesting to the player. So, previously, the dwarfs would lose paths in battle. They get -1 to all their paths, or in the case of the journeyman runesmith, I think he got -2 to all of his paths. I've changed that so that they now have the paths which are displayed. So you don't need to worry about their paths going down in battle, which means it's easier to do scripting because you don't have to. The game isn't going to lie to you about what the dwarfs are able to cast in the battle. You can go by the recommendations that the game is making. But dwarfs are now half speed at casting, so they are slow at casting things. They take the full fatigue, but they cast things at half the speed of normal. Additionally, the dwarf nation can no longer cast communion slave or master. So you can still get communion slaves and masters by forging the crystal items, which the dwarfs can do, and they're good at forging. They get forge discounts. So you can still do that, but they can no longer just stick up communion slave or master, which was previously apparently a really big thing that people were using for the dwarfs to get up to high levels of magic, and they were basically kind of ignoring the dwarf drawbacks in battle magic and just going straight up there. But they can't do that anymore, and that's partly just because I felt like it's partly, it's not desirable for me to make the dwarfs really about communions. I thought that wasn't a very sensible focus for them, and pushing players in that direction I didn't think was great. And thematically, I've justified it by saying, well, the dwarfs are, they quite jealously guard their knowledge. They don't really, they're like train one or two apprentices. They don't, the runesmiths don't actually like to share knowledge with other runesmiths, and the idea of them forming these very cooperative communions seemed weird to me. But they can still do it through items. Runesmith Apprentice battle casting speed halved, and he's now clearly a research mage. So this is going through each of these mages. I'm going to say their speed is halved, and then they're not able to do a certain thing. The Runesmith Apprentice previously wasn't losing any of his paths in battle, and that was actually making some weird situations where people would want to get the Runesmith Apprentices and put boosters and things on them instead of using the full Runesmith in battle, which was a bit strange. And now I would say that he's very much just a research mage, the apprentice, so you want to use your actual runesmiths in battle now. The journeyman runesmith, he's also got battle casting speed halved. He no longer loses any paths in battle, and his paths were changed by basically reducing them, and his gold cost is a bit lower. So previously he was really a specialist, wasn't really good at casting things in battle at all because of his big path malice. And people would kind of do weird things with communions and stuff like that to try to get them to work. But basically, they were site searchers, and now I would say that they're still good site searchers. They're still okay researchers, and you can use them as combat mages, and they're stealthy, which is cool. And they've got good map move, they're kind of comparable with the Golem Crafter of Agartha, maybe a bit worse as a battle mage because of their half speed. The Runesmith, battle casting speed halved, same as the others, no longer loses paths in battle, same as the others. And then his gold cost was raised because he's now more able to be a battle mage. I think he's a bit more attractive. We'll see if that gold cost is right, but he's at 230 now. And this should be the Rune Lord. This says Runesmith battle casting speed hub, but this is actually the Rune Lord, with his gold cost was raised from 400 to 440, and his CP cost was raised from 4 to 6, because the dwarfs do start with 3 commander points at their forts, and they can build 3 commander point forts to make more things. So I wanted the Rune Lords to be a bit more, a bit rarer, to have fewer of them, and to be more of a significant investment to go for a Rune Lord, and you want to keep them alive and everything. They get a bit more research bonus. They give you significantly better diversity in battle magic, but you have fewer of them. So I think that the Rune Lord's probably in a good place there at 440. He's a lot more expensive, but I think previously it was a bit too good for the dwarfs. The Runesmith and Rune Lord hit point values were reduced slightly. They were a little bit anomalous in being too high. And this is a problem with a few things that I've been ironing out over many versions of the Warhammer mod, is just making sure that mage hit points don't stray up too high, because they need to still be vulnerable to Seeking Arrow. They need to still be vulnerable to, like fires from the sky or flames from the sky, things like that. The runes of Fire, Thunder, Water, and Earth are now only castable with the Anvil of Doom or Thorek Ironbrow. Previously, they were castable by anyone who could boost themselves up high enough to cast them, and that was resulting in people basically casting them using communions and things, which was weird. So they're basically just for the Anvil of Doom now. The Anvil of Doom is cheaper now. It's gone from 38 gems to 30, and the reason from that is that the Anvil of Doom used to be that its main attractiveness was that it was about it didn't lose paths in battle, but now all of the dwarf mages like that. They don't lose paths in battle. So instead, the attractiveness of the Anvil of Doom is that it's got good paths, it can cast these special runes, and it has effectively double the speed because it's got normal casting speed. I believe it has double the speed of the other dwarf casters, so that's kind of attractive. And then the Hammerer, his Oath Hammer weapon, which is good because it was magic, but he wasn't really being recruited because the Sacred also had a magic weapon and was kind of better. So I've just increased his attack bonus. It's gone from +1 to +2, and it's got cost slightly more resources. So the Hammerer should be a little bit more attractive maybe now. It's a very small tweak though. The bigger tweaks to their kind of making the Sacreds more expensive and so on were in a previous version. So moving on to Khorne, the Slaughter Priest no longer has Douse -1. So this is actually quite a big change to Khorne, because the Slaughter Priest previously was pretty terrible as a blood hunter. You could give them a dowsing rod and then they'd hunt as a blood 1. But now, instead of that, because that was kind of counterintuitive and it was confusing the AI as well, I'd found. So instead of that, they don't have Douse -1, so they hunt as a blood 1, absolutely fine. But they can't use dowsing rods because they don't have any misc slots. So the AI doesn't get confused and tries to blood hunt with them and so on. So it's just a bit simplified, basically. But I think it's actually overall probably makes Khorne a little bit better at traditional blood hunting, but still they would get their main blood income from, their conquering and taking provinces and things, I think. As with the other Chaos Nations, their Warhounds got less siege strength because they were being used almost exclusively for siege strength, which was weird. So we've just taken that away. And we did a very similar thing with Middenheim. Hunting Hounds get -1 siege strength, and they were previously too useful just for sieging, but they're a bit stronger, they're a bit better at biting people. So they've actually got quite a few changes to Norska, and a lot of these were spurred by watching the video by Zan and The Distant Horizon. And Norska, I was getting quite a bit of feedback. The Norska was basically feeling like it was too strong. It was also feeling like it was like the Chaos Nation, Slanesh and Khorne, but without their kind of downsides. Like it was easier to get demon princes, it was easier to get these kind of things. So I made some changes to Norska. So overall tweaks were to make the nation less powerful. So fixes first. Name of the demon prince summoning spell was truncated. I fixed that. Dragon Ogre claws are now a bonus, obviating the need for ambidexterity. So the Dragon Ogre is now no longer got bad attack skill because of having claws. The Ravenstruck no longer keep their main claw attack if they're given weapons, but can still beak people in the head and kick people with their taloned feet. And Norskan longships no longer gain Norskan money, cause unrest, or create a raider force when in an allied province, because if you played in a Disciples game, you could have a bunch of your longship sites in your allies' territory and just be getting loads of money and slaves and things through that. It was kind of weird, so I fixed that. Then tweaks. Chieftains take an additional 10 experience before they promote, and they are slightly less likely to actually turn into Jarls. They're more likely now to turn into one of the werebeasts. That's basically because, unlike the other Chaos Nations, your basic commander can get promoted all the way up to becoming a Demon Prince eventually. The other Chaos Nations, you need to recruit a specific aspiring champion. It's not your just recruit anywhere very basic commander. So I'm kind of counteracting that a little bit and making it a little bit harder along the way to get to a Demon Prince. To get up from the Chieftain to the Jarl is now a bit harder. Warhounds, same changes as the others. The Volva gold cost was increased from 210 to 230. This is basically just they seemed like they were a little bit too good for the cost. And my idea with Norska is they should be a kind of middle of the pack, or maybe slightly lower than middle of the pack. Well, let's say middle of the pack Warhammer Nation. And the general level of power that I'm going for Warhammer Nations is kind of the upper tier of the vanilla Dominions nation, so kind of like, strong nations. So I want Norska to be fairly strong as a Dominions nation, but it is kind of a minor power compared to the other Chaos powers in terms of what it's supposed to be in the Warhammer lore, and therefore I don't want it to be one of the strongest Warhammer nations. The Shaman's gold cost has also increased from 110 to 120. So this is two of your most recruited mages are a bit more gold expensive, so your economy suffers a little bit there. The Great Shaman no longer has guaranteed death 1, and his cost remains the same, so the Great Shaman just got a bit worse, basically. Norskan longships in friendly territory now grant a bit less gold, down from 10 to 30 gold per turn to 8 to 22. So the Norskan economy, basically the Norskan economy was a bit too much on maps that had lots of coast, and it seems like people actually play a lot on maps with a lot of coast, and even the randomly generated maps can just have way too much water in them. It's very strange. So I had to tone that down a bit. And the same thing with Norskan longships in enemy territory, you get a little bit less gold from them. So that's Norska, and then we've just got a few more tweaks before we're done. Skaven, Tretch now reforms from death in 3 months rather than 6, which he's not that powerful, so this seems like a fine change. Slanesh, same Warhound change as the others. Tylea made some changes to the Merc contracts, which shouldn't matter to the player to make the AI more likely to recruit them, because it basically limited previously, and I have now seen the AI actually recruiting Merc contracts. Still doesn't do it as much as I want, and I'm still trying to work out why that is, but that change should help them perform a bit better when the AI is controlling them. Tomb Kings, the Tomb Herald is now recruitable outside forts as well as in. This is partly just to help the AI, and it's partly for people's convenience, and I don't think it's a big deal that you can get Tomb Heralds outside of forts. For Vampiria, the Vargeist recruitment was limited to 4 per month, and their rec point cost was slightly decreased. They were an odd low resource thing that the AI liked to spam, and the same thing with the Fellbat. Basically, I saw the AI a few times going absolutely crazy recruiting Vargeist and Fellbats in a really weird way, and I just put a stop to it by limiting their recruitment a bit. And then finally, we've got a nice fix for the Wood Elves. This had been in here for ages since the Wood Elves came out. That Orion's encumbrance was just way too high. It was basically, I hadn't given an encumbrance and it defaulted to 10, which is crazy high, and he's now got an encumbrance of 2, which is like other big kind of spirits and elementals and demons and things tend to have encumbrance too. So Orion now has that, and he's a bit easier to use in long fights without getting really tired. So that's everything for version 2.42. Let me know any feedback you have. Let me know if you find these videos useful. And coming up in the future, I should have some more nation guide videos. That's the next thing I'm going to do, I think, is either a guide looking at just a video looking at the how the AI performs the Warhammer nations, because I think that might be kind of interesting to look at. Or I might be doing some nation guides. I definitely plan on doing some more nation guides. I might have to redo the dwarf one given these changes. It's quite big changes to the dwarfs. So that's everything for now, and I will catch you next time. Take it easy.